funny that you say snobs because it makes me think of the most popular sketch on Key and Peele.
Yeah.
Is by far the substitute teacher sketch.
Right.
And it's interesting because when we were doing the show,
It's so funny.
it's such a clever premise. But when we were doing the show, I think when we sat around the day that the guy who pitched the scene pitched it, everyone went, "Oh, that's a great idea. That's a really solid idea for a sketch."
Yeah.
But nobody was blown away by it.
Yeah.
Because you know how like with community, like what's the most Andy Kaufman thing I can do?
Right.
What's the most Bob Odenkirk thing I can do? And that sketch just felt like a straightforward sketch.
Yeah.
300 million views later, you're going, well, why that one? And it doesn't. That's the best thing about our business. You'll never figure it out.
No, I know.
You're never gonna figure it out.
I know. I mean, there's a randomness to all of it. You're the best planning and stuff, but then the randomness. Like I remember reading Steve Martin's book, and like the wild and crazy guy or the bunny ear, like like all this kind of stuff wasn't like this is gonna kill.
Yep.
It was kind of an afterthought, and I may be messing up his examples, but there are iconic things that he had in his act that were afterthoughts that just stuck.
But yeah, and you cannot figure out why that struck the zeitgeist the way that it did.
Well, but with substitute, which is so, I mean, I two things I think that make it so funny. The casting of those kids,
Kids is perfect.
they're so to your insane temper tantrum and rage.
Yeah.
And that they can't say anything, but they're the way that high school kind of messy hair, bad skin, like, why is this happening to me? Kind of, they all have a great way of silently conveying it.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that I wanted to ask this because it's with a lot of your sketches and with all great sketches, I kind of think it's within 2 lines you get the premise is set.
Yeah.
Like we're not kind of finding it. Like you lay out within 2 lines we know, oh, we've set where this is going.
Yeah.
And now we're gonna fill it with jokes.
That's the art.
Yeah.
The art is how organically you can do the setup.
Right.
So can you do
Right.
it organically, and can you get some laughs while you're doing the setup?
Right.
That's like you said.
Right.
The term is, can you do it in an elegant manner?
Yeah.
Can you do it in an organic and elegant way? That to me was probably one of the strong suits of our writing staff as a whole. To be quite frank, I mean, Jordan was absolutely at the top of his powers as a writer at the time, and somebody had suggested that we work together again, and I was like, me work with him? Absolutely.
Right.
That guy is like about to become the greatest sketch writer in the history of the world. It was, I appreciate you saying that. We really had a good
When you talk about you and Jordan working together, like if just as a fun thought, is there a thing? There's like a moment. The great sketch shows, Chappelle, you guys, SNL at different times because of its longevity. Is there a cultural moment that you kind of have to hit? You know what I mean? Like you kind of get your. I always think of it like in terms of like Conan's show. Conan came out. He got this group of young people that were into it.
Yep.
And then they ride with you. And you guys had the same thing. You just kind of like, it was a spark and it just exploded.
Yep.
And you had your army. Could you come back and, I mean, your old fans would show up.
Yep.
But even like, let's take it away from you guys. Does sketch have to be of the moment? This is a good question. Because your book is the history of it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, and some stuff stands the test of time and some doesn't.
Right.
I'm asking 1,000 questions at once.
Right, but I think the most germane question is what, and that's the statement you just made. Can it stand the test of time?
Mm-hmm.
I 100% believe it can. At Key and Peele, we were actually faced with a challenge that I think ultimately helped the show's longevity, which is that because our writing process was so long, we never had an opportunity to write topical sketches. We never had an opportunity to embrace the moment. There were some moments that were embraced. Again, I'll use the word organically. Jordan and I are both biracial. At the time, we had just elected a biracial man to be the president of the United States.
Right.
So that I think to the people at Comedy Central meant a lot. And we just knew, let's figure out what we can do to make the strongest premises and the funniest sketches we can, and then let's slap some social stuff on top of it. If it's not foundationally funny,
right?
So foundationally funny, so that it's just going to make anybody laugh, and then we have to write evergreen scenes.
Right.
We have to write scenes about the human condition.
Right.
And so the result of that ended up being that somebody who's 32. Or 35, which is a person who would have watched our show in their 20s 10 years ago, and somebody who is 15 right now, like a Gen Alpha kid, can both go, I saw that sketch where you guys are doing the texting, and you're confused about what it means. That's great, because that'll work until they start putting chips in our head, and we do the texting that way. That sketch will hopefully work.
Yeah.
So I think that it can. There are Monty Python sketches that are just about class, rich people and poor people.
Right.
And some of the Monty Python sketches have, I was going to say a tinge of absurdism. They're fully absurd.
Yeah.
So they'll last the test of time because of the absurdity of the sketch.
Yeah.
Or the esotericness of the sketch.
Yeah. Were you conscious of references?
What we were conscious of, Tom, was that we couldn't use them.
Right.
And then during the second election, the Romney-Obama election, we did at one point in time a small little flash in our history. We set up a set in our offices where we could do a Luther Obama sketch. Where Luther, Obama's anger translator.
Yeah.
We could do one of those sketches like one a week, or anytime we wanted to if something happened. And what was interesting is those didn't hit as well as just the very first Luther Obama sketch, which was conceptual. No matter what the topic was,
right.
The beauty of the sketch is that you go, Obama's a guy who doesn't get angry. So when does he get angry? Does he go behind closed doors and hit walls? When does this guy get angry?
Yeah.
Oh, let's get him a surrogate who can be angry for him. And that was enough. It didn't matter what he was talking about.
Right.
There's only 7 stories.
Right.
There's 7 stories.
Yeah.
It's part of why my former partner, it's part of why Jordan and I stopped. I can't speak for Jordan exactly, but for me, I went, if we do 8 seasons of this show, it's just going to be the same scenes over and over again in new locales.
Right.
Eventually, everyone's going to burn out and go, I guess we kind of did this again.
Yeah.
So what? This is a husband who's scared of his wife in the desert, and this is a husband who's scared of his wife in medieval times before the jousting exhibition. There's only 7 stories.
So you kind of have to change. You kind of have to change who you're doing them with.
Absolutely, because who are you? That's history. Like that. You should know that. Like, I like to read old books. Sometimes I read old books, Tom, from the 15th century. There was a book called the Decameron, which had a bunch of little old stories and scenarios in it. That's the 1460s.
Wow.
The 1460s, right? Shakespeare read the Decameron. It's where Romeo and Juliet comes from.
Right.
He didn't make it up.
Right.
So, if you can get a little help. No, that's me.
Yeah.
Other people in my life, both of my partners, I learned from them. Jordan, I think of Jordan and Elle both as trailblazers. People who they come to the world at a different angle and go, this is how I see it, and I'm going to approach it this way, and I'm going to execute my art this way.
Right.
And I kind of sit back, and the best thing I can do for them is allow them to express themselves, as opposed to say, so that's just like what happened on Fibber McGee and Molly in 1938 on that. They don't want to know that.
Right.
Let them cook.
Right, yeah,
Let them cook,
So you have all this great love of sketch, and you're a great actor, and you're in a ton of different other projects. Would you go back to a sketch show? or like with somebody else, or do you feel like you've done that? Let's go towards other horizons.
I'll say this: I would do it again. I feel like I'd do it again if it was with Jordan.
Right.
Otherwise, I really would rather explore other horizons. If anybody in the world, in the sketch space, could find a new way to enlighten or elucidate or dissect those 7 stories, I think it would be Jordan Peele. That's my thing. Hey, listen, I'm sure somebody else. I throw down the gauntlet to everyone if they want. Let me just say this as a side note. You know, there's a bunch of numbers that are divisible and multiple. So it's 7 basic stories, but then that leads to 21 sub stories, which leads to 49 sub stories. Do you know what I mean? It's falls under this category, and fall under this category. So there's variations, but ultimately it's just the 7. He's the guy.
Yeah.
I know for him, he also felt like he worked really hard and he achieved what he wanted to achieve. And at that point in time, it just had been, I had been for 12 straight years. I went from the Second City to Mad TV to Key and Peele.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so now it's been well over a decade. I've been doing almost nothing but sketch.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of time to be done.